Cubans have won 2 points in a row now. And the serve of Esquardo. The Russians look very likely to lose another point. Oh, the ball did its job, but not good enough. ARTAMONOVA goes up for a spike, and a very intelligent one as well. She timed it, waited for the ball to drop its guard before smashing straight. Great block that time by the Russians. Can they do it one more time? Oh, yes, they can. ARTAMONOVA is there, and it's 8-6. They pull away now. 2 points won already on this service, and the Russians suddenly just finding their form after losing.
Applauded by the crowd, who seem to be very subdued in this Hamamatsu arena. It must be quite demoralizing for the players to play in front of such a crowd after being so used to sometimes capacity crowds in their previous pools. But they are professional players. They're playing for their countries. They're playing for a lot of money, as well as the 1995 Grand. So that 3 sets victory for China over Cuba, Mark, is actually very, very vital for them. Although they didn't really need it, because they've already qualified by, like I mentioned earlier, by virtue of being host for the final rounds.
Take an adverse effect on the Cubans. The 3 sets lost to the Chinese, but
they can eventually do even better, or even capture the Grand Prix. They can do it now with that victory over Cuba. We saw how effective the Chinese can be. So really, they are the spoilers, and they were certainly the spoilers against the Cubans in that match. The Cubans will be kicking themselves for just dropping 3 sets.
Good serve by ARTAMONOVA. Once again, the pace and the top spin put behind that volleyball just confused the Cuban defenders. And the Cubans, as I stated earlier on in the first set, are not very good at return of serve. With delicacy as far as putting the right amount of weight behind the cushion of the volleyball was really and sorely missing in the game against China. Once again, great serve by ARTAMONOVA.
That was set as it was in the first. No team really having the distinct advantage. Perhaps Russia just holding back for the moment, and as they approach the 10-point mark or the 11-point mark, then they begin to make their move. I don't know whether that's the actual strategy or whether it was just coincidental in the first set. We'll have to see what happens as this set wears on now. If the same happens, then we know obviously Nikolai Karpov has a strategy on his hands.
Leading by 2 points. ARTAMONOVA's attacking system today not really getting underway the way she expects it to and usually does. Great serve once again by Batushkina. She threw the ball up and saw the gap and then decided to just put a little less weight behind the serve of the very, very tricky jump serve that she possesses. Here's another one coming your way. That time well counted by Caballal. Great spike coming down from Torres. Lewis with a leap from deep. Oh, great work. Magnificent play. That was so far, but she made it look so near, Gareth.
Yeah, she's a very inspirational player. Like I said, when she came on court, expect things to change for the Cubans. Although the Russians are leading by 3 points, we can expect the Cubans to put in a much more determined performance.
As I said earlier on, ARTAMONOVA really letting her guard down at the moment as far as the attacking side of her game is concerned, because of the 47% success rates she has with her attacking side, her spikes and her serves.
Well, this is very surprising. Again, the Russians beginning to make their move midway.
Against Godina, and then by Gato.
Oh, well, it was a great spike, Mark, but wonderful defending by ARTAMONOVA. Just a little unfortunate that she couldn't provide the second defense. But she does well for the Russians now. And the Russians have the service back.
That sends Vila Torres, the tallest player in the Cuban side at 1.91 meters. And what an awesome sight actually to have that Cuban wall block your shot, because Caballal is 1.9 meters. Torres is 1.91 meters. Where are you going to go from there?
Well, the Russians showed on that last play, the Cubans coming back very quickly, and the Russians this time unable to defend.
Nice little setup for ARTAMONOVA. Was that a net violation call on the Cubans? Yes, it was. Serve goes back to Russia now, and ARTAMONOVA, her jump serve. Been at 10-7 for the longest time already. Let's see whether ARTAMONOVA can be doing something with this now. She's done it all evening round with her jump serves, but this time unsuccessful. Great spike off the wall. Great save by the Russians. ARTAMONOVA, wonderful setup. Although a miscommunication there between Godina and Batushtina means that the spike failed to come through. Batushtina sets it up for ARTAMONOVA. The leap from deep. Great save by the Cubans. Lewis can't finish it off. She's got a second chance too, and the Russians did tremendously well with Emelianova. And the wall coming up and doing its job. To be fair to Lewis, not the kind of height that she'd usually just plant the ball home. This one she had to go for the vertical spike, which was unsuccessful. 11 for a timeout, as the Cubans are on a hot streak, a mini hot streak. That's Nikolai Kapol, a very fierce Russian coach. No nonsense at all.
My goodness, I mean, I've never seen a coach so so serious, and his players really looking like they're going to be up against a firing squad if they don't pull their socks up and come back in this one. We've seen Kapol very serious in previous games, but I've never seen anything like that before. Not from any of the other coaches.
I'll be surprised if he takes away their dinner as well. There you are, the Russians come back. Let's see their response now after that little telling off from the coach. Well, they can't get it down with the spike. The Cubans, can they do it? Is it down the line? No, it goes out. Well, the Russian ladies really breathed a huge sigh of relief that they got the serve back. Otherwise, it's more shouting from the bench.
Yeah, interesting to see at that timeout that Kapol called. He was talking to Gracheva, and it's very apparent that in this match, Gracheva has not really been performing as she usually does at the net, providing all the sets.
Have got set point now.
That was very poor play from the Russians. They should have taken that. If you are in a position to return, you should return.
Especially if you're down. A setup by Liechtenstein. The spike comes in from ARTAMONOVA. At last touched the Cuban wall, and the Russians were lucky to escape them, and they saved one match point.
Yeah, the Russians breathe again, but very lucky, because that looked like it was going out anyway. Took a slight deflection.
Too much spin behind that ball that time, and too much weight put behind it. Gato, who's been the top player so far of the third set, serving for the Cubans. Oh, that time Gato expecting a teammate to go down for it, expecting Lewis to go down for it, and both didn't do anything about it as well, as ARTAMONOVA increases Gienko, her 500th international game, and a surprise that Kapol actually left her out of the starting six. Great serve by ARTAMONOVA. Wonderful little squat down dig up that time from the Cubans, especially from Fernandez. Gato couldn't save it. It's 2-4 now. ARTAMONOVA with another wonderful serve. Here comes Lewis. While and the Russians creep up 3-4. They always score a lot of points on the serve of ARTAMONOVA. Whether it's psychologically, they know that there's a safe server down there. Goes up for the spike. That's an amazing stat there. It only means the amount of spring she has in her legs. And the Russian coach, once again, Nikolai Kapol, giving every player a piece of his mind. This time to Batushtina.
Here we go again. This time, like you mentioned, Mark, to Batushtina, but Gracheva wasn't too far away. And I think these are the two players that he's targeting at. They look a very worried bunch, and, well, they have themselves to blame, really. They had the Cubans, but they've given that advantage back to the Cubans now. And it's going to be interesting to see how they cope now.
Well, maybe Kapol should try a soft approach. It might work the other way around, who knows? Because the Russians really, after bashing midway through the second set, it never really looked like the Russians in the first set. They looked worried. They look afraid to make mistakes. That's more important. And I guess the words of the coach have stung them.
That's a very good point, Mark. I was thinking about that too. Perhaps the softer approach might have worked. But then again, I guess the Russian coach knows his...
Whether they can get their focus back in the game again and return the serve in a better way. That's much better from Torres. Lewis goes up for that. Good spike. The Russian wall. 3 women there did their job. Here comes ARTAMONOVA. Great work. And the Russians are leading now by 5-0. In the 4th set, the first technique winning the 3rd set 15-4. And now in the 4th set, just when you think that the Cubans are hot, there's no way anybody's going to stop them. They're losing by 11-0.
Well, Raiso Farrell has come on for the Cubans. She was out of their last few games through injury. So obviously she's recovered. And look at the Russians, it's 12 now. 12 Incredible.
Now. I think this has got to be the most amazing set, the most unbelievable set so far in the whole tournament. Only one.
When they got the service back, you could see Esquire, they would just raise her eyebrows towards Maria Lewis. They were just relieved at the fact that they got the service back. But the Russians get the serve now, once again, with a great spike once again by guess who? ARTAMONOVA.
Oh, Gareth, seeing the way this match has gone so far, wouldn't be surprised.
It'll be good for the GrandPrix. China beating them 3-0, and then now the Russians in a fantastic lead. And if they can really finish off this set at 15-1, it would be the worst set that the Cubans have ever had. It will give more indications to the other teams in the competition that the Cubans aren't invincible.
A picturesque
with his team still, although they lead 12-2.
Well, Gareth, the way things are going in this set, you actually feel that it's a 5th set and not the 4th. The points are being scored far too easily as both teams are committing mistakes.
Yeah, that's a good point, Mark. Didn't quite strike me, actually, but it's true, yeah.
ARTAMONOVA getting the Russians closer to tying the game up at 2 sets all. 13-2 right now with that spike.
Maybe couples.
That's what we expected. It came off the Russian block. Gracheva with a setup once again for ARTAMONOVA. That was brilliant.
Fantastic play once again between the combination of Gracheva and ARTAMONOVA.
There it was a defensive wall set up by a lady who's 1.91 meters, Rila Torres, but she spiked it down as if there was no one there. Great leap. Great save. Wonderful dig up that time by Esquardo. Maria Lewis, even she is off form at the moment in this set.
Well, the Cubans just trying there to convince the referee that it took a touch off a Russian girl, but no way did that ball come off anybody. I think they're just desperately trying to get a point whichever way they can.
And the game of volleyball has certainly taken a strange turn. Stranger things have happened, but I'm sure the strangest in the tournament has happened so far in the last 2 sets. Russia have tied the game at 2-all. Have produced Cuba versus the Russians fighting for the Lux Cup. The Russians took the first set easily. The Cubans still in a daze after that loss to the Chinese. Lost it by 15-7. Then they were in that same daze as they went down by 11-7 before the timeout was called. And Russians suddenly went into that daze. And the Cubans came back, won that second set 15-7. The next set, the Russians looked like this, exactly like this. In a daze, didn't know what was happening at all. The Cubans strolled over them by 15-4. And then, right after that, the Cubans rested on the laurels in the 4th set, thought everything was over, thought the Russians could never come back again. But what happened? 12 points won on the serve of Gracheva.